One of the reasons I like doing hikes like this is it gives me an opportunity to get outside, kind of take in nature, but also go find some history. And I'm hoping today I'll be able to learn a little bit more about the history of San Diego County and the history of the Sickler family that came out here and, tried to start a business, tried to start a new life. Today I'm walking down some of the trails at San Diego County Park known as the Wilderness Gardens Preserve. Now this is near some of the reservations, such as the Pala Reservation, and it's nestled here in the Pala Mountains. What's neat is there's a lot of history down this trail as well, which is what I'm ultimately in search of. And I guess the purpose of today's hike, other than just getting outside and into nature, would be to discover some of that history. I really want to learn some of the history about San Diego County in the 1880s and about some of the families that settled here and what they did and what life was like for pioneers that were living out this way about 150 years ago or so. A sign for Wilderness Gardens Preserve. It is open at certain hours. Apparently it's not open on Wednesdays, as you can see here, and there are a good series of trails. So most of the trail that I'll be following today is the Frank Special Trail and then looping down into the main trail. So a lot of cool things to see here. All this land is right along the San Luis Rey River. There's also a pond here, and if you're lucky you might see some of the wildlife. Well, maybe some of this you'd be unlucky to see. I don't know if I want to run into a southern Pacific rattlesnake, but if I saw a coyote or a mule deer or even maybe a bobcat, that'd be fun. Kind of right here when you're starting the hike, it's almost just like a bed of these huge rocks, these huge boulders. I don't know, I really like this. It's kind of a cool, neat geographic feature, and just seeing the mountain in the background. It's just a beautiful backdrop. Really sets the tone for the hike. I'm excited. In the 1880s, brothers Marion and William Sickler built a two-story gristmill out here in Pala. And this was kind of a big deal. Not only was it the first gristmill in San Diego County, but prior to that, the nearest one was up in San Bernardino. So farmers that needed their wheat, barley, and other grains ground down into flour had to travel quite a distance. So it was expensive, it was time-consuming, and the establishment of this gristmill made a big difference, not just for the farmers, but also for those that were buying the flour. Prices went down, ended up being just a good deal overall. One thing about this gristmill that I found really neat when doing some research, it talked about how you would have multiple farmers arrive at the gristmill around the same time, or just generally being here at the same time. And it wasn't necessarily a quick process. So while you had multiple farmers here waiting for days, potentially up to a week or two, for their grains to get ground down to flour, they would just camp out here on the property. And every night they'd have a campfire, they'd exchange stories, they would socialize. And it's just kind of a cool thought to think about the community that was built around something as simple as a gristmill. Just ran into a guy, he asked if I had seen the mountain lion yet. And to my surprise, I was like, no, I haven't. He's like, okay, good, I haven't either. So make sure you're watching out for each other, folks. Just wanted to take a pause from my hike up here on a ridge to admire the view. Now these mountains are actually known for the gemstones that they produce, so tourmaline and other types. And to this day, there's actually some active mines. Most of them are more for the tourist side of things, but It's a cool concept and a cool thought to think that these gemstone mines have been here for well over 100 years, and some of them remain to this day, you know, at least somewhat operational. Marion Sickler actually got heavily involved in prospecting and searching for these gemstones. It didn't end up being as lucrative as he had hoped or his family had hoped, but still just one more aspect of the Sickler family and their impact they had here in San Diego County. This is the pond that's here on the Wilderness Preserve, and this is very peaceful. There's a ton of birds around. You can probably see some of them flying around. Sounds like I'm hearing some hawks in the distance. And like I said, there has been apparently there has been reported sightings of mountain lions in this area of the pond as well, which, you know, I guess you would expect that. We are in their environment. This is nice. I kind of wish I had a cup of coffee and a book, and I would just, you know, sit right here on this bench and enjoy the view. But unfortunately I don't. Also, it's kind of starting to warm up pretty quick, as it does in California this time of year. And it looks like we've made it to the site of the Sickler Brothers Mill. As mentioned, this was a two-story gristmill when it was built, and all that remains today is the stone base of the gristmill and the water wheel, it would appear, or at least a portion of it. Now, the Sickler brothers had a 6-foot wide cast iron wheel, which you can still see today. And they had built a flume from the nearby San Luis Rey River to run water over here. And it went down about a 20-foot drop, which is what created the power needed to move this wheel and ultimately turn the grinding stones. Now, the grinding stones, I think also known as millstones, they had two rather large ones that they were using in Missouri, which is where they came from and had previously operated a mill. And those two millstones had originally come from France. So when they were shipped from Missouri over to Oceanside, California, they had to utilize mule-drawn wagons to bring those two heavy millstones all the way up from the coast here to Pala, which I imagine was not an easy feat, but something that, you know, that is the key portion of a grist mill, so of course they had to get those here. But it is neat to still see this cast iron wheel from the 1880s, still here in place where it was. Of course, the water's no longer running. Now I'm looking down into the mill. This is a pretty sizable building, and I imagine, similar to other remnants of buildings we've seen out here, all of these stones were sourced locally and put up by hand, which is a cool thought. Just picture the Sickler brothers and whoever else out here helping them build this in the beautiful Pala Mountains. You know, now you got highways cutting through, and a lot of people like to use this trail, which I think is great, but just imagine in the 1880s how quiet and how desolate and how beautiful it would have been out here. And just picture them sort of hewing out part of the wilderness to build this mill is just such a neat thought. And I really can't get over the fact that this cast iron wheel is still sitting here after all these years. It's not every day you get to go out and just kind of touch history, but this one's pretty awesome. The buckets on this wheel are really neat, and you can see some of them are still here, some of them are damaged. It looks like they all have this extra little lip on them. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of that was. And down here at the bottom, all of the buckets are pretty much intact, which makes me wonder if just over the years people had vandalized or damaged, whether on purpose or accidental, these buckets up here up top. And if you're like me, I'm very curious to see if this thing still spins. So let's see. Oh yeah. Still getting some rotation out of it. Not a lot, but something. There you go. I don't know how many people get a chance to do this. Spin in 1880s gristmill water wheel. Oh man, this thing is heavy. But yeah, I was able to get it to move. There you go. She still rotates a little bit. Not sure when the last time that happened was, but it's kind of cool. And it's kind of neat to just picture the water running down from the nearby San Luis River into this spot, which again, that was the power. It was harnessing nature, harnessing the power and movement of water to make this spin. And you can see here where at one point the cast iron wheel, of course, went into the mill itself. Let's see if we can see. And it went in through there, which of course turned the millstones, which ground up barley, corn, grains, anything like that, down into flour. Here at the gristmill, there is also a interpretive sign that gives some of the history of the Sickler Brothers Gristmill. This will give you a better idea. This is an 1883 lithograph from Wallace W. Elliott, and I believe the gristmill was built between 1881 and 1882 and first saw service in 1882. And there's an actual photo of it in 1902, and I love just seeing, you know, it kind of set up against the hills, obviously just as the ruins are today. And to just visualize that right here is pretty awesome. It's been pretty special here walking the trails of the Wilderness Garden Preserve and just getting to see the remnants of the Sickler Brothers Mill. Not only is it, you know, a neat historic site that you can check out on your hike, but I hope people, when they come here, they stop to really think about what life would have been like for people out here in the 1880s. You know, these brothers came from Missouri all the way out here to build a mill and to be able to see and actually touch the cast iron water wheel that's still here. It's been sitting here for almost 150 years. Is really a unique experience and sort of connects you to those people in the past. And it was a hard life out here, but they did it. They did it to make a living. They did it for their families. They did it for themselves. You know, everyone had their reasons. But to see these remnants, again, is just a beautiful example of that Western pioneer lifestyle and that go-getting attitude and what they had to do to make it out here in what was once really the Old West. It was the wilderness for them. So pretty special to be able to come check this mill out. Thank you for coming along with me. Now it's on to the next journey.